When people around the world think of the Great Wall of China, they picture one of humanity's most extraordinary creations. A long ribbon of stone winding across jagged mountains, fading into the horizon like a living scar across the land. It is celebrated as a symbol of endurance, a wonder of engineering, and one of the most iconic landmarks in existence. Tourists come from every corner of the globe to walk its battlements, to touch its stones, and to imagine the ancient soldiers who once stood guard. But behind the beauty, behind the grandeur, is a far more complicated story, one filled with ambition, suffering, sacrifice, and myth. The wall was never just a defensive barrier. It was the product of centuries of conflict and political vision, rising and crumbling along with dynasties. Each emperor who worked on it sought to project strength, to hold back invaders, and to leave behind a legacy written in stone. And yet, for ordinary people, the wall was often less a shield than a burden, a structure built from their labor, their lives, and their grief. To understand the wall is to see both its brilliance and its darkness. Despite its familiar name, the Great Wall was not originally one single, continuous structure. Instead, it began as a patchwork of defenses built by small kingdoms as early as the 7th century BCE. These early walls were modest, lines of tamped earth, wooden barricades, and simple fortifications thrown up to slow raiders and protect fragile harvests. They were never meant to impress the world. They were born out of fear and necessity. When China was unified under the Qin dynasty in 221 BCE, the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, made one of history's earliest attempts to link these scattered defenses into a larger system. His armies connected and reinforced some of the old walls, hoping to hold back the nomadic tribes of the north. Yet these early efforts were far from the massive stone fortifications we recognize today. Over centuries, the Han, the Sui, and especially the Ming dynasty, each added their own chapters, building and rebuilding, shifting the wall to match changing borders. By the 14th to 17th centuries, under the Ming, the wall became closer to what we know today: stone battlements, watchtowers, signal fires, and long stretches carved into the very bones of mountains. Out of this long process, the legend of a single, timeless, Great Wall took shape. But in truth, it was always less a single creation and more a mosaic of efforts, stitched together by narrative and memory. The grandeur of the wall hides the staggering human cost of its creation. It was not built solely by skilled artisans or devoted soldiers. Its greatest labor force was composed of conscripted peasants, farmers pulled away from their fields, prisoners condemned to punishment, and ordinary men forced to work under brutal conditions. They were sent to remote mountains and deserts, armed with little more than crude tools in their bare hands. They carried heavy stone blocks on their backs, pounded earth into walls with wooden rams, and struggled under blazing heat and biting cold. Food was scarce, shelter was minimal, and accidents were constant. For many, the wall was not just a workplace, it was a death sentence. Legends tell of countless workers buried within the wall itself, their bodies becoming part of the structure they died building. While historians believe this story to be more myth than fact, the reality was no less grim. Thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, perished over the centuries from exhaustion, starvation, accidents, and disease. Those who died were often left unburied in the wilderness, far from home, their families never knowing where their bodies lay. For villages across China, losing a husband, father, or son to the wall was almost like losing them forever. The suffering extended beyond the construction sites. Every man taken meant a household left vulnerable. Fields went untended, harvests failed, and families fell deeper into poverty. Communities were hollowed out, and the cost of the wall rippled across society in invisible ways. Its stones are not only mortared with sweat and blood, but also with the grief of families and the silence of abandoned homes. Even as a defense, the wall was never perfect. Its watchtowers, beacon systems, and battlements made it look formidable, and on paper, it seemed unbreakable. But history tells another story. In 1211, Genghis Khan's Mongol armies bypassed the wall entirely, finding unguarded routes. In the 17th century, the Manchus gained entry when a general betrayed China by opening a gate at Shanhaiguan. Again and again, enemies slipped past, not because the wall was weak in its stones, but because it was impossible to defend its enormous length with limited manpower. The wall could slow invaders, but it could not stop them. Its greatest power was not military, but symbolic. For emperors, that symbolism was enough. The wall projected strength. It reassured citizens that the dynasty was in control, that their rulers were mighty and vigilant. To rivals, it was a reminder of China's authority and wealth. It was propaganda made of stone, carved across mountains, impossible to ignore. In that sense, the wall may have been more effective as theater than as fortress. The myths surrounding the wall are as enduring as the structure itself. One of the most famous is the story of Meng Jiangnu, a woman whose husband was taken to work on the wall. When he died, she traveled to bring him clothes for the winter, only to learn of his fate. Her cries were so powerful, legend says, that part of the wall collapsed, revealing his body. This story may be folklore, but it echoes the grief of countless families who lost loved ones to the wall's construction. Other tales speak of ghosts wandering the battlements, restless spirits of laborers who died far from home. Whether these are supernatural or simply cultural ways of remembering suffering, they add a haunting dimension to the wall's legacy. Western explorers who encountered the wall in later centuries carried its myths even further. Fascinated by its scale, they embellished their stories, portraying it as larger, older, and more mysterious than it was. Some claimed it could be seen from the moon or from outer space, an idea still repeated today, though it has long been disproven by astronauts themselves. These exaggerations shaped global perceptions, turning the wall into not just a Chinese monument, but a symbol of human ambition on a global scale. Today, the wall attracts millions of tourists each year. Restored sections like Badaling and Mutianyu are polished and commercialized, offering visitors a carefully curated glimpse of its grandeur. Yet these popular sites tell only part of the story. Far from the crowds, long stretches of the wall lie in ruin, crumbled, overgrown, and abandoned. These forgotten remnants are silent witnesses to centuries of hardship, erosion, and neglect. They tell a story not of triumph, but of decay, and of the ordinary lives that once bled into its stones. Preserving the wall today is a challenge. It requires balancing national pride with honesty about its darker past. On one hand, it is a source of identity, a symbol of endurance, and a reminder of China's cultural depth. On the other, it is a monument built on forced labor, sacrifice, and grief. To honor the wall fully, we must acknowledge both sides. We must see it not only as a wonder of the world, but also as a reminder of the human costs behind great achievements. The Great Wall is a line across the landscape, but it is also a line across history. It divides myth from truth, pride from sorrow, ambition from suffering. It stands as a lesson about the double-edged nature of leadership, the power to inspire and to build, but also the power to demand unbearable sacrifices from the people. In the end, the wall is not just about stones and battlements. It is about human resilience, about lives lost and families broken, about the endurance of a civilization through struggle and hardship. To walk the Great Wall today is to walk through layers of history. It is to admire the grandeur, but also to remember the countless voices that never made it home. Beneath its myths and legends lies a deeper truth, that greatness often comes with shadows. And it is in embracing both, the marvel and the suffering, that we can truly understand the legacy of the Great Wall of China. For more details on this topic, check out the corresponding article on our website. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.